Hi guys, my name is Joren van Hee and welcome to this tutorial for Sass+. In this tutorial you will learn how to easily write and maintain media queries with Sass. The tool that is going to help us with that is called Breakpoint. Okay, so I'm going to open up the code editor. I already have some files and folders here. This is an index.html file with some Google Web Fonts and a style sheet. I have an assets folder with a CSS folder, an images folder with 3 images, and an SCSS folder with a Sass file. The file should be available for download next to or under this video. So if you want to work along with me, just go ahead and download the files. Breakpoint requires Sass version 3.3.0, so before we install it, let's check the requirements. We can go to the terminal and type sass-v. If you don't see anything higher than 3.3.0, you should go ahead and update Sass with gem update Sass. We are going to install Breakpoint through Bower. To check if we have Bower installed, just type Bower. If you don't have Bower installed or you're not really familiar with it, you can go to bower.io or to the Sass+ website and search for Bower. By default, Bower installs the packages into the Bower components folder in the root of the project. I don't really like that, so I'm going to add a Bower RC file. So I'm going to make a new file, save it as .bowerrc. And here I just have to say directory assets/Bower components. And now if we install something with Bower, it should put a Bower components folder in the assets folder, and in that folder it will install all the packages. To install Breakpoint, I'm first going to go to my project, and now I can say Bower install breakpoint-sass. Now you can see that Bower has installed Breakpoint in the Bower components folder that is now in the assets folder. Now we just have to import it into the style.scss file. While we could look for the import path manually, while looking in the Bower components folder, there's a much easier way to do it. Okay, let's open up the terminal and type bower list -- path. Now we have to look for Breakpoint Sass, that's here, and we just have to copy this here. That's the path to Breakpoint Sass. So now we just have to type import and paste this in, and that's it. Now that Breakpoint is imported, we have access to the Breakpoint mixin. Let's start with some basic examples. I'm going to add a background color of black to the body, and I'm going to change that to blue when the window has a minimum width of 500 pixels. We can do that by including the Breakpoint mixin and passing 500 pixels, background color blue, and that's it. Now you can see that Breakpoint has generated a min-width media query for us. We can also use m values, by the way. Okay, let's add 2 values now. Now you can see that Breakpoint has generated a min-width max-width media query. Let's take a look in the browser. So if we start, the window is black, then between 500 and 700 pixels it is blue, and then it is black again. Perfect. We can also use Breakpoint at the root. So let's paste that in here. Body. So that also works. In some cases it doesn't work, but I'll talk about that later. Okay, let's have a look at some more examples. But now we are going to put the breakpoint definition, and this here is the breakpoint definition, in a separate variable. So I'm going to change this in BD, and I'm going to add a variable here. Now let's make breakpoint definition with a media type. So something like print 500 pixels. This also works. You can add everything here from screen to handheld. Just make sure if you add not or only and before the media type that you add quotes around it, because it is in 2 different words. We can also give more information to breakpoints, like max width 500 pixels or height 500 pixels, 800 pixels. You can really do a lot with breakpoints. Now let's do a more complex AND query. We already did an AND query, as you can see here, but I want to show you a more difficult one just to make sure you understand. So let's say we want to target a screen and it has to have a minimum width of 500 pixels and a min height of 300 pixels. So this also works. Screen and min width 500 pixels and min height 300 pixels. To make AND queries, you just have to separate everything by spaces. Now let's do an OR query. I'm going to say orientation landscape. Landscape. OR, and you can say OR by adding a comma. Minimum aspect ratio 16:9. Okay, and now we have an OR query. As we just saw in the previous examples, if you give breakpoint one value, 500 pixels for instance, it will generate a min-width query. But if you're more a max-width person, then you can change that default behavior. You can do that by adding a variable on top, breakpoint default feature, and here you can specify which feature you want to use for one value, and in this case let's change it to max width. And now if we change the breakpoint definition to 500 pixels, you can see that breakpoint uses max width. Let's remove that, and now it's min width again. You can also change the behavior for two values, so for 500 and 800 pixels. By default it uses min width and max width, but you can change that by using this variable, breakpoint default pair, and we can change it to height. Okay, now I'm going to show you another setting that will automatically convert the pixels to M values. We can do that by adding the following variable, breakpoint to M's true. And if we save now, you can see that breakpoint automatically has converted the pixel values to M values. Now we are going to build a small project together with everything we learned and some new stuff. So I'm going to start by cleaning up this file here, and I'm going to add some new files. First I'm going to add a new folder, bits, with a file variables.scss. I always like to keep my variables and mixins in a bits folder. Now I'm going to add a partials folder with a type file for all the typography and a layout file for all the rest, just for now. And now we have to import everything in the style sheet, in style.scss, sorry. So I'm going to start with the variables, bits variables, then the typography, and the layout. We still need some markup in our index.html file to work with, so I'm going to paste that in here. It's just a container to center everything, a heading and some paragraphs. Now I'm going to paste in some styles. I just reset the margin of the body to 0 and I add the styles for the container. And now I will paste in the styles for the typography. So I set the font family to the Google Web Fonts that we imported. I give some styles to the H1 and to the paragraph. Let's take a look in the browser. Okay, that looks alright. Now let's say that we want to increase the font size as the window becomes bigger. So we can already do that with everything that we learned. So let's add a variable in the variables file. Tablet 500 pixels. Now we can include the breakpoint mixin here, include breakpoint, tablet, and we can increase the font size. And this should do it. Okay, that works. But there's a better way to do it. Breakpoint actually comes with a nice way to organize your breakpoint definitions. So let's go back to the variables document and remove everything. And let's add a new variable, breakpoints. This is the variable that breakpoint will look for. Now we can do add breakpoint, the name of the breakpoint, tablet, and the definition. So here we can actually define breakpoints. Here's the name of the breakpoint and here's the query definition. While we are here, why don't we just add another breakpoint for the desktop? Desktop and 900 pixels, for instance. Now let's go back to the type file and replace the breakpoint mixin with respond to and remove the $sign, and this should also work. Okay, now let's do the same thing for the H1. Include respond to tablet, and let's change the font size to 2M. Okay, works perfectly. Now, just to make it clear, respond to is another mixin that comes with breakpoint, and add breakpoint is a function that comes with breakpoint. I would like to show you another way to organize our breakpoints, and that's the way that I prefer to do it. It's a little bit more organized. So we're going to start by putting this here in comments. And instead of redefining breakpoints over and over again, we are going to do it once, thanks to Sass maps. So breakpoints, now we are going to make a map here. Tablet, 500 pixels. Now I'll put a comma here for the next definition. Desktop, 900 pixels. As you can see, it is much more readable like this. Oh, and by the way, this is how Breakpoint does it behind the scenes. Let's add something new to the page now. I'm going to paste in some markup again. So this is a header that will have a background image, and in that header we have a link that will go to the home page. Now let's paste in some CSS. The header will have a height of 200 pixels, a background image that will be centered, and a background color. Let's take a look in the browser. Okay, that looks alright. Now let's add a bigger version of the image for Retina devices. So I'm going to make a new breakpoint, Retina, and we can target Retina devices by saying min resolution 1.5 dppx. Now we can go back to the layout file and add our mixin here, include response to Retina. It's as simple as this. Now we can just copy this line and change the file to the Retina version. I'm going to take a look at the output, the CSS, just to show you how simple it is. So we just had to type min resolution 1.5 dppx, and Breakpoint provides all the fallbacks that you need, so you don't have to remember all that stuff anymore. Now let's add another image for the tablet. Include response to tablet, and I'm going to copy this again and change the path. Oops. If you wanted to, you could also add a Retina version for the tablet by just nesting another mixin inside this mixin. So like that, respond to Retina, and that would also work. But I'm going to save some time here. I'm also going to change the height to 300 pixels for the tablet. And for the desktop version, I will change the height to 400 pixels. Okay, let's take a look in the browser. Perfect. We still have to add some styles to our link in the header, so let's paste this in here and see how it looks in the browser. Okay, this is a nice link, but it could be better for touch devices. I would like to add some styles to it, but they should only be visible on touch devices. Maybe a background color and some padding. Let's see how we can do this with Breakpoint. I'm going to add a new breakpoint in the variables file, touch, and we will detect touch with pointer course. With pointer course, we can actually detect devices with an inaccurate pointer. Now let's add some styles. Include response to touch, And let's remove the margin, add some padding. And add a background color. Let's take a look in the browser. Still looks like how it did look. So let's open up device mode and let's see how it looks on an iPhone. As you can see here on an iPhone, we have the background color and we have more padding. So that's perfect for touch devices. Now let's add a fallback for the touch devices that don't support the pointer course media query. I'm going to use Modernizer for that. So I'm going to download a Modernizer with touch events detection. Let's copy this, make a new folder in the assets folder JS, and a new file modernizer.custom.js. Okay, now let's import that in the HTML. Script source equals assets.js modernizer.custom.js. Okay. Modernizer will now add the class touch on the HTML tag, on touch devices at least. So what can we do with that? I'm going to open up the CSS file and I'm going to explain it to you what we need. So on touch devices, the class touch is on the HTML element. So what we need is this: touch, backlink, and then the content of the pointer course media query. Like that. Breakpoint can help us with that. This can all happen automatically. So let's go to the variables file and add no query touch. No query tells Breakpoint to also put the content of the media query outside of the media query, but in this case with the class touch in front of it. Now we just have to add one variable. Breakpoint no query fallbacks touch. This tells Breakpoint which no query fallbacks it should print. This also allows us to make different style sheets with different fallbacks. So let's save it and let's have a look in the style sheet. So as you can see here, the styles of the backlink are in the pointer course media query and also here. So that's perfect. Now we won't see anything here, of course, because this isn't the touch device. So I will change the touch to no touch, just for now. And I'll also have to change this here. And now we can see that we have the touch button here. Let's change this back. Okay. Oh, by the way, this is one of those cases where we cannot use the breakpoint mixin at the root. If we use no query with a class, then we have to nest the breakpoint mixin. That's because no query uses the parent selector, and if it isn't nested, there's no parent. So here, this has to be nested. Now there's one more thing that I will show you, and that's how you can make a separate style sheet for IE8 without media queries, but with the content of the media queries. This is very helpful, especially when you work mobile first. Okay, first I will add the no query fallbacks. No query, true, and the same here. In this case, we just need the content of the media query, so we don't need to specify a class name. So we just say true. Now I'm going to add two new style sheets. all.scss and style ie8.scss. I'm going to grab the content of style.scss and paste it in all.scss. And now I'm going to import all in style, import all, and I'm going to do the same thing for the style ie8 style sheet. Okay. Now I'm going to grab this here, the no query fallback settings, and in the regular style sheet I'm going to paste this one, and in the style sheet for IE8 I'm going to put this. No query fallbacks true, and breakpoint no queries true. And this means that breakpoint shouldn't output any media queries, only the contents. Let's take a look at the style sheet for IE8. As you can see here, the site header first has a height of 200 pixels, then here 300 pixels, so that's for the tablet version, and here 400 pixels for the desktop. So IE8 gets all the CSS it needs without the media queries. Now let's add that style sheet in the index.html file. I'm going to use some conditional comments here. So here I put the style sheet for everybody and IE mobile. And here the style sheet for IE8. Okay, so that was it, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, put them in the comments and I'll try to answer them. You can also tweet me at Joren van He. If you want to know more about Breakpoint, you can go to their GitHub page. There's a great wiki on there. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. See you guys. Bye.